colors post. Please stand. Present arms. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. Detail, retreat.
Those of you that were fortunate enough to have a seat, you're welcome to sit down. Welcome, everyone, to the 2023 Law Enforcement Memorial Ceremony. It is my pleasure this year to also include the award ceremony that has been going on in the past, however, has not happened since 2020. So we're going to bring that back and start off the ceremony with that today. However, right now, what I would like to do is bring up Head Police Chaplain Pastor Jeff Russell for an opening prayer.
I invite you to bow with me as I lead us in a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, your word says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Here we are gathered together in this chamber today, taking a sacred pause in our lives to give honor to your peacemakers, to those who have given their lives in their law enforcement capacity. Yes, the ultimate sacrifice. For it is written, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. So we are here to remember and give honor to the men who gave their lives as they served and protected our city. As we hold this service, I pray that each of us will have a deep appreciation and gratitude, as well as a profound respect for these officers, but also for all who are presently serving in the same tradition, putting their lives on the line each and every day. I pray that you will bless this service, our leaders, and our city as we now honor those who have fallen in the line of duty, but as we also recognize and honor those who have served our city in honorable ways. I know two of these are my colleagues, Pastor Chuck Armstrong and Mark Watkins. I was honored to serve as a chaplain with them. And now for the rest of this service, I do pray your richest blessings on it. In your holy name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. In the audience with us today, we have Mayor Tyler Moore. Feel free to stand, please, if you like to be recognized. We have some retired officers. We have retired Officer Larry Darlin, who actually started this ceremony over 30 years ago for the Kokomo Police Department. We have retired Captain Larkin Fourkiller. I believe there he is. With us, we have Councilman Matt Grecu, and some other retirees. However, you guys will be pulled up on stage in a little while. So anybody, I'm sorry, State Representative Mike Karakoff is here today as well. Let me scan again. That's what I get for not bringing a notepad. I think. If there's anybody I missed, please stand up. Okay. As I mentioned, this is the first award ceremony we've got to reintroduce since prior to 2020. And I realized very quickly how hard it is to comb through the multiple numbers of nominations, recognitions that are provided to our officers. So having said that, I have narrowed this down so we can keep this ceremony and get to the purpose of the ceremony as quickly as possible. So I would like to start off with those officers who are being awarded the Exceptional Duty Medal. The Exceptional Duty Medal is awarded for highly professional conduct or performance that brings public acclaim to the officer, the department, or the police profession because of training, devotion to duty, and service record. There are a handful that I believe don't only exemplify just exceptional duty, but immediately impact certain things within the department and definitely impact ongoing crime that is occurring with the challenges that we face today. If you are present, please come up when I call your name. Detective Austin Bailey, Officer Drew Wallsmith, please, right up here. In March of 2022, Officer Drew Wallsmith and Detective Austin Bailey were assigned to the Digital Crimes Unit, tasked with investigating all digital types of equipment, mainly focused on crimes against children occurring through the internet, commonly known as child pornography. They arranged a meeting with State Representative Mike Karakoff to discuss creating a law that would criminalize the depiction of child pornography in cartoon form. Cartoons depicting images of child pornography were not previously illegal to possess in the state of Indiana. Obviously, they are sick and twisted depictions of sexual acts with children in cartoon form, and it never been recognized as victimizing a real individual. I previously served as an investigator in that unit and understand the frustration that played because those images in cartoon form are very commonly possessed by those pedophiles and sexual predators that we are trying to take off the streets. After contacting State Representative Mike Karakoff, with his full support, Officer Wallsmith and Detective Bailey assisted him with the drafting of a bill that would criminalize cartoons that exploit the sexual abuse of children in the state of Indiana. After several meetings, discussions, and testimony, additional House committee hearings, House Bill 1363 passed the House with a unanimous vote and was signed into law by Governor Eric Holcomb. It is my honor today to award Officer Drew Wallsmith and Detective Austin Bailey with Exceptional Duty Awards for their devotion to duty and service to the public for their efforts in protecting children all over the state of Indiana. Okay, next I would like to call up Officer Ted Migrant, Officer Dan Huckler, Officer Nate Gibson, and Officer Chris White, please. In July of 2022, officers were dispatched to a residence on the north end of town in reference to a shooting in progress, and the shooter was still at the scene. Officers Ted Migrant, Officer Dan Huckler, Officer Chris White, and Officer Nate Gibson quickly arrived on scene to safely handle the active shooter situation. The officers contained the shooter to prevent additional risk to public safety in the surrounding area. They were able to disarm the shooter without firing their weapons and without any additional injuries to anyone at the residence or in the surrounding neighborhood. What makes this situation even more extreme for the responding officers is that 3 of these officers were acting as field training officers that day on their very first day with a brand new recruit. As those of us in the profession can imagine what it takes to not only keep yourself safe, protect those around us, but 3 of these gentlemen that day had to also protect an officer who was in uniform on the street for his first day. And that, to me, is definitely worth mentioning. And it is for those reasons that I'm awarding each of these officers the Exceptional Duty Medal for their work on this case. Medals will be coming. And next, I'd like to call up K-9 Specialist Noah Moody and his K-9 Gus, but I don't see him. The value of a department's K-9 unit cannot be overstated. The unit has the ability to accomplish multiple missions, including drug enforcement, search and rescue, fugitive apprehension, and of course, public relations. So I wanted him here today. However, one of their most important missions is often kind of taken for granted for those of us who are fortunate enough to have a K-9 program within our departments. And sometimes it's hard to oversee or take for granted the situation that the K-9 officers and their K-9s do to not only bring a situation to a safe resolution, but also act in a way that at the same time provides an extra layer of safety for our officers. One of these situations occurred in September of 2022. Officers were attempting to serve an outstanding felony warrant at a residence on a violent wanted felon who was hiding somewhere inside. K-9 Officer Noah Moody and his partner Gus conducted a search of the residence and were able to eventually apprehend the wanted felon who was hiding in a dark and narrow crawl space underneath the house. The deployment of Gus not only located this fugitive in a location that would have been impossible, or at least greatly increased the risk to the officer's safety, but it provided an extra layer of safety for all the officers that were present that day, attempting to apprehend this wanted violent fugitive. Situations like this do occur frequently in our city, but this call for service was recognized by supervision based on the successful apprehension of the individual with no additional injuries. It is my pleasure today to award K-9 Officer Noah Moody and his partner Gus with the Exceptional Duty Medal. Okay, the life-saving medal is awarded for an act performed in the line of duty that through disregard of personal safety or prompt and alert action results in the saving of a life. I would like to call up the following officers. Officer Sean Swinford, Officer Gabby Urin, Sergeant Chad Rogers, Sergeant Jeremy Dodd, Officer Richie Sears, Officer Jason Maynard, and Officer Samantha Raber. When I call your names, if you would, just take a step forward so everyone is aware of who we're speaking of. Okay? On a cold February day in 2022, Officer Swinford and Officer Gabby Urin were dispatched to an area for a welfare check of an individual in the area. While they were searching the area, unbeknownst to them, they were dispatched to the wrong area. However, through their persistence, they continued to look for an individual who may be in need of help, and they were able to locate an 85-year-old male who had fallen down in the cold and was not appropriately dressed for the temperature. Hypothermia had set in, and the elderly male even told the officers he was convinced that had he not been located, that's where he was going to die. Thank you. Sergeant Chad Rogers, Sergeant Jeremy Dodd, and Officer Jason Maynard, please. These officers responded to a residence for a distraught and depressed individual who was wanting to end his life. The subject or entry into the house was eventually made, and the subject was located in a back room of the residence holding a loaded shotgun pointed to his chest. All four officers worked together and, along with their combined negotiating skills and de-escalation tactics, convinced the suicidal subject to eventually place the shotgun down after spending nearly 2 hours with these officers. After detaining the subject for psychological treatment, they also learned that he had also ingested a large amount of prescription pills prior to their arrival. Thank you, gentlemen. Officer Samantha Raber. In August of 2022, Officer Raber was dispatched to a local gas station where she located an unconscious male who was not breathing due to a suspected drug overdose. Officer Raber quickly recognized the signs of an overdose and administered the subject with a dose of Narcan. The suspect then began breathing on his own before medical personnel arrived. The individual actions taken by every single one of these officers up here today clearly saved the lives of multiple citizens in our community due to the officers' prompt and patient actions. So it is my honor today to award each of these officers with the life-saving medal. Those medals we actually had. So the other ones that came in were not the right ones. So if anybody received one and did not hear me, you will get those upon receipt. Okay, it's going to get a little crowded up here, but will the following officers please step forward? Captain Mike Benush, Captain Bruce Rude, Captain Scott Pertee, Captain Rich Benzinger, Sergeant John Webster, Sergeant Chad Rogers, Detective Brent Wines, Detective Cameron Cunningham, Detective Eric Fogg, Detective Dustin Spicer, Assistant Chief Teresa Galloway, Retired Officer Sean Kinney, Retired Officer Sean Haas, and if present, Retired Officer Jeff Catt, and Officer Drew Wolsmith. Major Selden, would you assist me with this, please? In March of 2016, officers of the Kokomo Police Department responded to a missing person report. The case was immediately forwarded to the Criminal Investigations Unit for follow-up investigations. Over the course of the next 6 years, hundreds of tips were continually received, followed up upon, and documented, resulting in hundreds and hundreds of supplements being generated on this missing person case. I am unable to provide any further details about the case right now as it is still pending. However, it is due to the persistence and investigative techniques and dedication to their performance of everyone who was in CIS, the Criminal Investigation Section, for that period of time, led eventually to a level of probable cause, and arrest of the suspect was made in July of 2022. As a result, I am awarding a unit citation award to the members of the Criminal Investigation Section who actively participated in this investigation. I'm sorry, Detective Austin Bailey. My bad. You got pictures, everybody be willing to come back up and get a picture. Getting hot in here, or is it just me? Okay, as I mentioned, having to go through all of the nominations was quite a task that I was not anticipating. Throughout 2022 and the first quarter of 2023, there were approximately 35 to 40 officers who were documented being recognized by not just their supervisors, but also their peers, the ones they work with, who took the time to document some very highly professional performance on behalf of their experience and knowledge. So when I call your name, if you would please at least stand, make your way to a middle aisle so that the rest of the crowd can see you. Letters of recognition and letters of peer recognition. Received Officer Richie Sears, Officer Travis Cooper, Officer Justin Mackey, Detective Austin Bailey, Officer Mason Fisher, Officer Mike Marr. Officer Ryan Adams. Sergeant Ty Solomon. Officer David Bell. Officer Brock Green. Sergeant Jordan Wiseman. Officer Zach Griffith. Officer Isaac Walden. Officer Nate Gibson. Specialist Brian Sheets. Sergeant John Webster. Captain Bruce Rude. Captain Mike Benush. Specialist Doug Rensberger. Specialist Jason Maynard. Officer Devin Craig. Officer Samantha Raber. Sergeant Travis Williams. Officer Andrew Brooks. Sergeant Jeremy Dodd. Sergeant Chad Rogers. Officer Ted Migrant. Officer Logan McCauley. Now, before we give a round of applause for these gentlemen, I want to make a point to just point out that if I could, I would have every single officer on this department up here being recognized, because nothing is possible without the teamwork, along with the individual effort and dedication that is shown daily by the professionalism in this department. So thank you all. Okay, we're going to get into just a couple civilian awards. Just bear with me just a little bit longer. I'd like to have State Representative Mike Karakoff come up to the stage, please. If you didn't catch it earlier, I'll just give you a brief little summary. Basically, if it was not for the help and the support and the guidance from State Representative Mike Karakoff, this probably would have been a harder process creating and passing a new bill that helps us protecting children in the state of Indiana. I'd also like to mention that this is not the only work that Mike Karakoff has done on behalf of law enforcement within the last year. Recently, a new bill was passed, that creates a 25-foot safety bubble around law enforcement officers while they are conducting official police business. That enables law enforcement and provides us with another safety tool in order to continue any de-escalation we possibly can to safely handle every single situation. So with that, I am presenting State Representative Mike Karakoff with a civilian award. I would now like to call up Jason Town and Joshua Forkiller. I'll get in as to why they're here today and what their most recent participation was. But for any of us who have been on this department for any length of time, these two gentlemen who work for a local store as loss prevention, asset protection, even when I was in patrol, do so much to aid law enforcement and specifically the Kokomo Police Department in not just deterring crime that occurs from thefts, shopliftings, but have been the utmost civilians in working with us for a very, very long period of time. So both of these are long overdue, all right? So thank you guys for coming. But even most recently, City of Kokomo was being hit by a South American theft ring that were victimizing customers at local stores. It was based on these gentlemen's actions working directly with Captain Bruce Rood, Captain Mike Benush, with our criminal investigation section that provided more and more information about who we were looking for to apprehend for these crimes. And based on their observations on one day, they quickly notified the criminal investigation section. There was a police response, and all three of them that were involved in Kokomo on that day that spanned many, many states were apprehended and will be held accountable for their crimes. So based on not just that case, but everything else that you gentlemen have done for the Kokomo Police Department, it is my pleasure to award you today with this civilian award. Okay, it's going to get crowded one more time. Will the following employees please join me up here? Sally Sargent, Dawn Circle, Serena Gaunt, Debbie Ice, Tammy Burge, Cindy McKinley, Tina Laudenschlager, Tony Tafflinger, Alicia Kessler, Amanda Pertee, Tiffany Harris, Robin Clark, Jordan Roach, Sally Sexton, Natalie Martinez, Katie Sanders, and on behalf of Kim Smoot, who is tending to a new grandchild, I'm going to call up a recently newly hired employee to stand up here for her, and that is Jaleisha Green. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. As I have told each of you before, and I can never say it enough, that everything that we do is absolutely impossible without the work, the dedication, and the things that you guys have accomplished. Some of you more years than the other, but we'll take what we can get. This is the civilian backbone of the Kokomo Police Department. They make everything happen behind the scenes. And on behalf of the Kokomo Police Department, I would like to thank each and every one of you for your continued service. So I am issuing each of you a recognition award today for your continued and dedicated service to the City of Kokomo. Unfortunately, I ran out of frames, so they'll you guys even lined up. Make this perfect. Almost. Oh, there we go.
Thank you, guys.
Just a couple of closing comments. Like I had mentioned, I wish I could have the entire department up here because it has truly been an honor to serve at this department in this capacity for all of the fine men and women of the Kokomo Police Department. So we will now begin our memorial service portion of the, oh, I'm sorry, we got two more. Thank you. Can I have Chaplain Chuck Armstrong, Chaplain Mark Watkins, and Head Chaplain Pastor Jeff Russell up here, please. The Kokomo Police Department has long utilized a chaplain program that has always been there or been there when called upon to help any citizen in dire need on all of the different types of calls for service that we respond to. Most recently, in working with Head Chaplain Pastor Jeff Russell, we have placed more focus on utilizing the chaplain program to not just assist the citizens of this community when needed, but also be here for the officers' mental being so that they can continue serving this community in the mental capacity they need to be. Today, however, we're going to say thank you to two of these gentlemen who have served in this chaplain program for years to come. Your service to this community is appreciated more than words can express. So it's sad to see you move on, but we understand sometimes that happens. But thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
No, I will not repeat my closing arguments. Okay? Thank you for all of your presence of everybody who's recognized and everybody employed by this department, whether you're civilian or whether you're sworn. Those of you whose family took the time to come out and join you today, a special thank you to the family, because without the support of everybody's family, once again, whether you're sworn or non-sworn, this job is difficult enough, but the support of that family makes it a lot better. So I would like to thank all the family members of all of the city employees today. And with that, I will now turn the ceremony over to Major Brian Selden.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon. We gather to remember our brothers and sisters who have paid the ultimate sacrifice protecting their community. In 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day and the calendar week in which May 15 falls as National Police Week. Established by a joint resolution of Congress in 1962, National Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. We would like to remember two Kokomo police officers who have paid the ultimate sacrifice who were killed in line of duty. Thomas Lannon, who was killed on August 22nd, 1877, and Al Berryman, who was killed November 26, 1953. The events are as follows. On Wednesday, August 25th, 1877, Officer Lennon was talking with citizens while on duty at the Pennsylvania Railroad Depot on North Buckeye Street. 3 weeks prior to this date, Officer Lennon had arrested Michael Gillooly for charges of visiting a house of ill fame. Gillooly was convicted of charges and fined by the mayor's court. Gillooly vowed revenge against Officer Lannon and took out his revenge on this fateful Wednesday at the downtown railroad depot. As Lannon was conversing, Gillooly approached Officer Lannon from behind and fired 2 shots, fatally wounding Officer Lannon. Gillooly was taken in custody for the murder of Officer Lannon and sentenced to be hanged for the crime. The sentence was later commuted to life in prison by the governor of Indiana. The second incident took place on Thursday, November 26, 1953, when Officer George Al Berryman was fatally shot responding to a domestic disturbance on Kokomo's near west side. Officer Berryman had joined the Kokomo Police Department in 1947 and had served as a detective and a patrol officer during his 7 years with the department. On this November day in 1953, Officer Berryman and his partner were sent to a residence on the west side on a report of a disgruntled steelworker that was in some type of confrontation with family members. When the officers arrived, the suspect, Achilles Spear, shot through the front door of the residence as the officers were walking on the front porch. As Officer Berryman was struck by the blast from Spear and received fatal wounds from the assault. Spear also died as a result of defensive fire from Officer Berryman's partner during the attack. We now wish to honor these 2 officers and those who have died throughout the years across our great nation by laying carnations at the podium by active and retired officers present. After you place a carnation at the podium, please assemble along the walking path in front of City Hall facing the flagpole for laying of the wreath. Is there any members of the Berryman family present today? May we bow our heads in commemoration of these 2 officers. Thank you. Go ahead, please join us as we assemble our flag. Thank you.